Hello there. Good afternoon and all that stuff. This is Dr. Terry James Gingrass, and I'm here to do Dr. G's ADHD Chat, a show that is designed to help make the world a safe place for ADHD. I am a clinical neuropsychologist in private practice, and I have about 50-60% of my practice is ADHD. At this stage of the game, it's more evaluations than anything else, and I do children and adults. And I also am the father of a child with ADHD. Oh, actually, he's an adult now, but that's okay. And I've been working with ADHD for more than 30 years. I don't even have an exact count. And back when we started out, ADHD was a challenge because the research was crummy, in spite of the fact that it has been identified for at least 200 years in medical literature. A whole bunch wasn't really known about it, and in fact many people were saying there was no such thing, that it was all a made-up thing just as a substitute for bad parenting, or as a recognizing bad parenting, I guess would be more the way to put it. So nowadays we have, first of all, we have a great deal more knowledge because the research has just gotten really, really good. But we've also got better treatment methods, and we've confirmed basically the major treatment methods. And there's generally a greater acceptance. Although in my practice I still get people who he's just a regular boy, she'll grow out of it, all this, fairly ignorant stuff, basically, I think. But I've been doing this a long time, and I don't have a lot of patience with folks who fight science. And boy, we got a lot of that. The thing I wanted to talk about today is medication. Okay, now I said I'm a neuropsychologist. I do not write prescriptions. But over the years, I have seen tons of my patients when they weren't on medications, after they were on medications, and what kind of problems they had, and so on. And I want to talk a little bit about that, and sort of an interesting and kind of complicated, I guess, thing to talk about. Everybody has probably heard of placebo, which is, I believe, Latin for I shall please. And basically it's the idea that in a lot of circumstances, just giving somebody a treatment improves whatever their situation was. And there are some famous studies about that. Probably the most famous are the Hawthorne studies. It was done in a mill in Massachusetts, and it was like, how do you improve productivity? So, they had a researcher come into the factory and go around and look and interview workers and so on. And then he recommended, I forget what, changing the lighting or something. And boom, production improved. And then he recommended something else, and production improved again. Then they started getting, what the heck does any of this that we're doing have to do with productivity? So they went back and took away what they had done, and production improved. And they finally figured out that what was really increasing production was that they were paying more attention to the workers. It wasn't any specific change in the environment or anything. It was that they were paying that much more attention to the workers. The same thing happens with medication trials. The fact that people are in a trial and they're being given something that is supposed to be helpful, for a lot of folks that increases their physical health or reduces their problem, whatever the situation is. Whether or not the medication is has any clinical effectiveness, whether it changes anything, I mean, and people have shown improvement with headaches on milk sugar pills. It's like they'll joke about M&Ms helping you concentrate better, or helping you reduce your headaches, or reduce your pain, or so on. The mind is very powerful, and I am not a woo-woo kind of guy. I am pretty much hard science. If it's been proven in research, I'm all for it. If it hasn't been proven, I have a little trouble with that. That's why a lot of these dietary things that are sort of, well, maybe, probably, could have an effect, kind of things, I have a lot of trouble accepting that. On the other hand, I recognize that not everything has been studied scientifically. Okay, there's a whole bunch of stuff we don't know about, especially about mind-body interaction effects. Your mind is the most powerful thing you have to improve your health, your mood, everything. If you have really good control over the mental processes, you are able to be healthier. You are able to have a better mood. You are able to keep going when other people quit. All sorts of things. Now, when we talk about placebo, we're mostly talking about positive effects. That there are improvements in health or mood or whatever. Now, there's also, and it's not as well researched, bad placebo effects. That's when you have a problem from taking a medication that nobody else has had, or that doesn't seem to make sense based on what you are taking, side effects that don't make sense, problems that don't have anything much to do with the chemical interactions that are going on because of the medication. Okay? That makes perfect sense to me. If you can mentally improve the effects of taking something, whether that something is effective or not, it also makes sense that if your expectations are not good, or excessively worried, or concerned about what you're doing, that you will have side effects that nobody's ever heard of before. Okay, and I understand that we'll talk mostly about stimulant medication, because that's the most commonly used medication, and it's been around, well, I think it was 1937 was the first time it was used on a person with ADHD. And stimulants generally are minimal side effects. Okay, matter of fact, Dr. Russell Barkley, who is one of the foremost researchers and writers in the field of ADHD, told a group conference that I was part of the audience in, that for any other condition, if the treatment were as effective with as minimal side effects, it would be considered medical malpractice not to prescribe it. He's talking about stimulant medication, okay? Having minimal side effects and being super effective. And in general, for most people, 85% of all people who have been properly diagnosed with ADHD, it's effective. And it works well, it works fast, it metabolizes out without much of any effects. You can take it one day and not take it the next. You can take it one day and not take it for a week. When you come back, you take it, it's effective. It is like the ideal treatment for an adult with ADHD. Because the other medications, the other approaches to treating ADHD require a blood level, which means you have to take the medication every day. You can't skip. Well, if you know any adults with ADHD, you know doing anything every day is not something they're real great at. And I'm okay with that. But it's much better if they have a treatment that takes into account their difficulties in this area with consistency. Okay, so stimulants by far are much easier for folks. But what I get concerned about is when I read, on the internet, some support group on Facebook, say, or anywhere, Instagram, whatever, wherever you're going, and you see these kind of weird, like, he started doing this, and dip. Okay, let me talk about the placebo thing. If you are doing something with your child and you are scared to death of it, and you are asking 20 times a day, how are you feeling? Guess what? You're likely to get a bad response. You're likely to have, not that your child is making up things, but when you really pay attention to some physiological process too much, or cognitive process for that matter, you cause interference effects. You cause things to get screwed up. You can see it in pick a physiological, how about breathing? We all do that all the time. We don't think about it, right? Person who's had one panic attack starts thinking about it, starts observing it more and more, and guess what? They have more panic attacks, okay? In general, a medication properly prescribed for someone who has been properly diagnosed with ADHD is going to be effective 85% of the time or so. But you can screw it up, by hovering. You don't want your child to have a negative response, but you sort of predispose them to that by being obviously concerned and worried and, oh my God, what did we do? We gave him, it was bad. And, so you look at the internet any day and you'll see all sorts of odd sort of symptoms that don't make a lot of physiological sense. The chemistry just doesn't work for the symptom they're describing. And you see a lot of that. And, I understand. I've been there myself. You do not want to do anything that's going to harm your child. But let me tell you, ADHDers who are not treated have much tougher lives than ADHDers who are treated appropriately early and the treatment is maintained. They're the ones who, get MDs and JDs and PhDs and have successful careers in all different areas in spite of having ADHD, because they have been treating it, they know how to treat it properly, they're not overly concerned about it, they just have reasonable expectations and they get a reasonable response and can have reasonably successful lives. Was that reasonable enough for you? That's the frustration, I guess, is you have, and I have, I've had all of pretty much everything that can happen to an ADHD person I've experienced as a therapist, evaluator, dip-de-dip, and virtually all the people who come in to see me as an adult are people who either were never diagnosed, or they were diagnosed and somehow when they got to be all-knowing, like when they were teenagers, so they know everything and can't be told anything, they quit their treatment then, and same thing happens to them. They have troubles with school, they have troubles with relationships, they have troubles with vocational stuff. They have multiple divorces. They just barely squeaked through high school. They tried college, maybe couldn't graduate, or took them 8 years to get a degree in physical education or something. Your child will be happier and live a more satisfying life if he or she is identified early and treated continuously. Okay, that's what all the research shows. That's what my personal experience shows. That's what my colleagues who also do the same kind of work, that's what their experience shows. Early treatment will stop a variety of difficulties and evils. Just as simple as that. And hovering and having, not being able to, one of the things we learn as parents is sometimes we just got to fake it, Sometimes, the first time you let them out of the house with driving the car, you're faking it. You're just saying, okay, just be careful, bye. And you're scared to death, and you're waiting up for them when they're supposed to be home, and if they're late, oh my God, you have all these fantasies about cars wrapped around trees and other things like that. So we learn to kind of cover our anxiety, and I highly recommend you make an effort to do that regarding your child's medication for ADHD and your child's treatment for ADHD in general, okay? As Russell Barkley said, the treatments we have for ADHD are as effective, if not more so, than any other medication treatment for any other condition. Wow, okay? Huge statement, but it's true. Now, there are some complications with medication, and maybe I should talk about that next time. But because medication is a little trickier, I'm going to make myself a quick note here. It's tricky. Getting the correct dosage is tricky. So that takes a little effort and a little patience. It's not the wrong medication, it's the wrong dosage. And that is frequently an issue with ADHD meds. Okay, that's me for this time and day. And Dr. G's ADHD chat. I'm available at terrygingrassphd.com. Gingrass is Gingras, and Terry is Terry. Okay? For girls, it's an I. For me, it's a Y. Okay? And we are in the throes of getting a couple of courses together, and we are also in the throes of writing a couple of books, and I will let you know about progress on both of those areas as we continue. And if you have any questions or anything, post them. I think it's down there, and I'll try to get back to you. Okay? And if you have some ideas for topics to cover, please share. I'd like to make this a sort of a community thing, if we can, and I am real comfortable sharing what I know and what my experiences have been, both good and bad. So feel free to share. Okay? Thank you, and we will see you next time.